Oh, hey, what up, Slur? I didn't see you slither in. I was just sitting here, main charactering, thinking aesthetically, reminiscing about a book I read as a little girl. Can't remember the name, though. Can you help me figure it out? So, I remember it was a young boy in England with dark hair and round glasses who learns that there is a secret magic world just beyond ours, one that he is destined to save from evil. But in order to do that, he has to learn to wield magic, get a pet owl, stuff it in an inappropriately tiny cage, and meet a whole bunch of silly and wonderful magic teachers and friends. What was it called? Shut up, I remember. The Books of Magic by Neil Gaiman. A classic of its genre, precursor to the world of Sandman, first published in 1990. Oh wait, did you think I was talking about those other books? The books about the arcane school of wizardry where you go to study magic to learn and develop your ability to control it? A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K, Guin, published in 1968? No? Oh, the other one. The other book about the magic school. The Invisible to Normies School by the Forbidden Forest, where the students are split up into houses, learn to ride brooms, engage in hijinks like getting into a little trouble, turning themselves invisible. Oh, and it has that mean and strict potions teacher who has a grudge against the main character, but favors the blonde bully. The Worst Witch. That's what you mean, right? Written and illustrated by Jill Murphy, a beloved children's classic from 1974, famously adapted to television in 1998 and again in 2017, and also adapted into a TV movie starring Tim Curry and Diana Rigg. That must be what you were thinking of. No? Jesus on a popsicle stick. Was it So You Want to Be a Wizard by Diane Duane? The Little Broomstick by Mary Stewart? Equal Rights by Terry Pratchett? X-Men 1984? Oh, ew. You meant the one that's about the British class system, right? By that writer who people are always tweeting about and being mean to. The book about the private school where wealthy people want to murder anyone who doesn't have pure blood, and there's a secret civil service hiding nefarious schemes. 10 Years to Save the West by Liz Truss? Fine. We'll talk about Harry Potter, the main character in the magical universe that takes place in the movie Troll. Okay, I'm done. I swear. I'll talk about Joanne, Kentucky Rowling, but this had better be the last time. I do not want to be accused of entering my cursed child era. Rowling once said,
I haven't got the faintest idea where my ideas come from.
Well, sit your ignorant ass down, Joanne, and let me tell you. I guess. Roll the thingy. In June 2020, following her descent into total transphobic oblivion, Jesus Kobold Rowling faced criticism from former stars of the Harry Potter franchise and current actual decent humans with values and lives Emma Watson, Daniel Radcliffe, and Rupert Grint. As a result of this complete betrayal of the patron saint of being middle class, a number of British celebrities took to their greasy smart devices and tweeted in her defense. Amongst these was Graham Linehan, better known by his Twitter handle, No Wife, No Job. He said, people make a big deal of Harry Potter turning on her, but every single character in that series came from her head. She is Harry, and she's not just Harry, she's Hermione. And Ralph. This is never not funny. Hashtag I stand with JKR. The R stands for Ralph. Well, I'm sure Graham was just emerging from his cocoon of crustified socks because he heard the notification on his phone. He's set to sound every time there's an opportunity to ride on a more popular transphobe's coattails. He does raise an interesting question. Is J.K. Rowling actually the mind behind these beloved characters? Is she really responsible for Hermione Granger? Is her imagination really where Harry Potter first squirmed into existence? And did she really come up with beloved children's character, Ralph the Weasel? Well, given that I'm on the side of the culture war that doesn't cherry pick examples to make legally dubious arguments and then celebrate being proven wrong by lying, I'm not going to say that Harry Potter was plagiarized. In fact, I'm not even going to say that the Harry Potter books were, to use a vaguer term, stolen. No, I'm not. I swear. I pinky swear. Bottom's honor. Listen, between us slurs, whatever clickbait title and thumbnail text that sucked you in was probably some kind of a mistake. And also your fault. And it never happened. And if it did, again, it was your fault. You can't sue me. I'm gay. I'm just here as your dewy, friendly neighborhood literary critic to explore the question, is J.K. Rowling the most painfully derivative and unoriginal writer the world has ever known? Well, yes. Yes, she is. But let's have some fun with it anyway. If you want a video on whether Harry Potter is good, despite it being derivative, it's not, watch this video by Hoots that I did the CGI for. And also, again, you cannot sue me. Our first example of potential influence was published by DC Comics in 1990. The Books of Magic was a series created by writer Neil Gaiman, and it tells the story of Tim Hunter, a 12-year-old boy in England who gets caught up in the magical side of the DC universe, which the series was intended to be a kind of explainer for, given the complicated web of magical characters in canon. So it has a long list of guest appearances, as well as some pretty wild ideas, the kind you might expect from Neil Gaiman. But the fact that the Books of Magic balances all of that while telling a compelling story speaks to Gaiman's talent as a writer, especially given that the main character, Tim Hunter, created 7 years before Harry Potter, is the more interesting character of the two. What they share in common is all pretty on the nose. There's the round glasses, the floppy brown hair, the school uniform aesthetic, this coming-of-age arc learning to use magic, a secret world just around the corner from our own, exposition by old dudes in cloaks, a sidekick who's a white owl, in this case called Yo-Yo, which I just think is very cute. Now, whenever I hear the name Hedwig, I just think of Hedwig and the Angry Inch, which if you reread Harry Potter, picturing that, it makes the imagery of the series a lot more interesting. There's some pretty major differences too, though. The Books of Magic is a comic series. It takes us from the birth of the universe to the end of time. It's an excuse to hang out with DC characters like Mr. E and John Constantine. And probably the most striking difference, Tim Hunter makes decisions. The whole series hinges on him choosing whether or not to practice magic, and the ultimate question of whether having such power will cause him to do evil. Gaiman once said of the comparison between his work and Harry Potter, "I thought we were both just stealing from T.H. White." When asked in 1998 if he thought J.K. Rowling had stolen the Tim Hunter character, Neil Gaiman answered, "I certainly didn't believe that Rowling had ripped off Books of Magic. I doubted she'd read it, and that it wouldn't matter if she had. I wasn't the first writer to create a young magician with potential, nor was Rowling the first to send one to school." She certainly wasn't, was she, Neil? I know you're setting up my segue to the next section, because Hogwarts Institute for the Criminally Inbred is far from the first school of witchcraft and pigeonry in the history of fiction. Before Hogwarts, before Miss Cackle's Academy for Witches, before the Discworld's Unseen University, before Miss Frizzle and her magic school bus that I'm no longer allowed to ride on because I once asked Liz if she was a worm, there was the School of Wizardry on Rogue Island in the 1968 book, A Wizard of Earthsea. Here again, we find plenty of similarities. An ancient school founded by legendary wizards, the main character traveling there to learn to use magic. He has a scar on his face. He ends up in a rivalry with a pompous, patronizing posh boy, and they get into a wizarding duel. But again, there are crucial differences too. Ged, our protagonist, has to go to this school because his impatience with learning magic is proving to be dangerous for everyone around him. When he gets into a fight with his rival, Jasper, it's Ged who loses his shit and accidentally summons an evil darkness that scars him and haunts him for the rest of his life. Which is an Animorphs level of quality right there, because you see how the characters experience lasting consequences as a result of their own actions. You do see that, right, Joanne? See how the physical scar is like a manifestation of something that the character did rather than something that happened to them off screen, you see? Maybe I'm expecting too much from Joanne. Even if she was once described by the maybe ex-cultist and legitimately pretend journalist Megan Phelps of the Westboro Baptist Church as arguably the most successful author in the history of publishing with the possible exception of God, that doesn't mean she has to make her art with character and motivation and consequence and other boring things in mind. She's a fun author, not like a good author. I don't think Joanne has ever claimed to be a great storyteller. Where her strength lies is in the whimsical and fun ideas she has, right? Don't tell me. She didn't even come up with the silly fun stuff? In 1964, when Jill Murphy had the actual fun idea of adapting episodes from her own life into stories of a magic school, it might have been because she was 15 years old, which is clearly the perfect time to have that idea. Jill Murphy's innocence and proximity to the experience of going to a boarding school with all the gals made her the perfect person to write about a school for witches. So she wrote a book that was, for years, the seminal text on magical schools, The Worst Witch. Transforming her friends into a bunch of quirky misfits at Miss Cackle's Academy, she created such beloved characters as Mildred Hubble, Maud Spellbody, and Enid Nightshade. These are the kind of magical character names I can get behind. Take notes, Joanne! Her chemistry class became potions class. Singing became chanting. Physical education became learning how to ride a fucking broom. You get it. When I mentioned I was doing this video in my group chat, my gorgeous and incredibly helpful friend and YouTuber Ember Green was like, are we talking about The Worst Witch? But are we talking about The Worst Witch, though? Ember is a Worst Witch stan. She has their mo-fucking number and immediately sent me a detailed list of striking similarities between The Worst Witch and Harry Potter. Reading through the list legit had me like, damning evidence in The Worst Witch for the worst author. Let's dip our toes into the most glaring similarities that Rowling often gets credit for inventing. The protagonist is surprised to get to attend a magic school and so is an outcast among the other students. Just like Harry Potter. In Harry Potter, the kindly head teacher takes a special interest in Mildred and is especially fond of her, just like with Harry and fake gay Gandalf in Harry Potter. Witches and wizards aren't known about by non-magic society and have their own fashion, traditions, and history, and don't use modern technology because they have magic, just like in Harry Potter. Some witches don't come from magical backgrounds, just like Harry Potter. There's a mean teacher who is basically Snape, Miss Hardbroom. She's tall with dark hair, dark eyes, dresses in all black, hates Mildred, and favors the blonde bully. She's the potions teacher. She seems like a bad guy, she's strict and unemotional, and everyone is afraid of her because she appears out of nowhere, but is really a good guy. Like Snape in Harry Potter. The fuck? Are we sure we don't want to just call this plagiarism? No? Okay. Well, what about after I tell you that the school uniform in the books is a white shirt, black cape, and striped tie, and the students are split into houses and wear colored sashes to mark them, like with the Hogwarts houses in Harry Potter. Although this is very much just British boarding school that seems unique to people who haven't seen these in real life. Basically, maybe she's not creative. You're just American. In The Worst Witch, the school is also in danger from a coven of bad witches, and it's up to Mildred to save it, like the Death Eaters. In Harry Potter, the rival student is an upper-class girl with bright blonde hair who is favored by Snape. Miss Hardbroom. Her family are famous and respected witches who attended the school for generations. She always tries to get Mildred in trouble, even if it means risking the school. Like in Harry Potter. Just like Harry Potter. Just like Harry Potter. Just like Harry Potter. It's just like Harry Potter. Just like Harry Potter. But let's be blunt. I guess the differences are pretty huge too. Basically, Jill Murphy is chill. And Mildred Hubble is chill too. And she kind of just goes through her education without there needing to be a fascist uprising or every other character getting a Vada Kedavra off screen. They're nice books. I wouldn't say they're a recommendation for something to move on to from Harry Potter, but if you're looking for something to have read instead in a different version of reality where there's no just can't Rowling and trans people are safe and everything is chill, then yeah, definitely eat that shit up. There's some more honorable mentions before we move on to The Little Broomstick, which features a school for witches, and surprisingly, a little broomstick. The Discworld novels by Terry Pratchett feature Unseen University, a school for wizards in Ankh-Morpork. And on the staff, there's series regular Ponder Stibbons, who really, really looks like Harry Potter, but again, has actual personality. And so on and so forth, yada yada, padam padam. There's a big boom in fantasy literature from the 60s through to the 90s, and a lot of it seemed to involve schools where wizards and witches learn how to wizard and witch. So let's answer the question. What makes you so special, Joanne? What makes you so special? Was it just coming up with all those silly ass names? In fact, here's a fun game. I call it 2 JKs and a JK. It's like 2 truths and a lie, except it's 1 wizarding name that I pulled out of my ass and 2 names that Joanne thought would actually be a good idea. Here we go. Kingsley Shacklebolt. Sodom Bloodbum. Cho Chang. Leave a comment below which one you think is the fake one. And what your horrible Rowling name would be if you'd been at Hogwarts. No slurs. Stick around because I asked Twitter what their offensive Joannified Hogwarts name would be based on their identity, and they are funny. For instance, Hormony Changer. Hormony Changer. Brilliant. I love you. Okay, maybe you think I'm a little affected by my distaste for Joanne's politics. And I'm forgetting that the Harry Potter franchise features truly iconic imagery. Can we give her the imagery at least? Like the magic train, the Hogwarts Express, which leaves from King's Cross Station, platform 9 and 3/4. I mean, what could be more of a truly original Rowling creation than that train? Rowling has admitted to being a fan of the Chronicles of Narnia and its influence on her work.
I found myself thinking about the wardrobe route to Narnia when Harry is told he has to hurl himself at the barrier in King's Cross Station. It dissolves and he's on platform 9 and 3/4, and there's a train for Hogwarts.
Trains have held a special place in children's literature since the first railway track was laid down in the 1800s. Stories for Victorian children often featured the train as a romantic and logical gateway between their normal world and the world of adventure that awaited them. From Enid Blyton's Famous Five to the pretty weird death by train wreck and ascension to heaven for the Pevensies in the Chronicles of Narnia, trains have been a fixture of children's fiction for as long as trains have been a reality. The specifically magic train that goes to a secret place is also not a creation of Rowling's. We could credit it to several people. In Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, he meets a witch named Doris Crockford, who shares a name with the IRL author of the 1937 book about the famous train, The Flying Scotsman, in which the train departs from platform 10, King's Cross Station, and goes on a magical adventure. There's also Chris Van Allsburg, creator of the 1985 book The Polar Express. Focusing on all that would be missing the point here, zooming in too far on a much larger picture and focusing on the pixels. Trains have always been magical. Trains are just fun. Trains are cute. Trains take you to wonderful places you've never been before. Trains have been such a staple of whimsy and magic in fiction that in 1909, they published a book called The Railway Children. And it didn't even matter what it was about because people saw railway and children and bought it on the spot. I used to take the train twice a year to visit family, and each time it felt like an escape not just from the city, but from my life. Going under bridges, tunnels, past fields, and through small towns you've never stepped foot in, but you could name them based on a blurry photo of their train station alone, it felt like being transported across more than just distance. The vibration of the train, the clicking of the tracks, the constant and persistent motion through the countryside. It's a magical experience. So if you want to credit someone for that, or for the idea of a train that's magical getting incepted into culture, then don't thank the transphobic hack. Put some respect on the name of George Stephenson, inventor of the goddamn steam locomotive. Or no, whatever. Far be it for me to ask you to respect the dead. Okay, so what ideas are left? What did J.K. Rowling come up with? Hippogriffs? No, that was Ludovico Ariosto. He invented hippogriffs, fantastical creatures with the front half an eagle and the hind half of a centaur. Or as Glinner would put it, half bird, half chair. Maybe hippogriffs and hybrid creatures like them existed before all that anyway. Because as long as humans have looked at animals, our nasty little imaginations have thought, what if front half furry? What if back half feathery or whatever? We're just gross that way. But did she come up with Dumbledore? No, he's just a queer-baiting Merlin. If you want a great video about how Merlin is queer-baiting, check out this video on the channel of one of YouTube's most prolific and I'd say original video essayists, James Somerton. Hello? Oh. No. Oh no. No. Oh. Okay, I'll watch it now. Okay, thanks, Quing. Okay, so the video you should watch is by Alexander Avila, and I have never met nor promoted this man. Okay, so I don't know. Saying J.K. Rowling came up with Dumbledore is like diversity casting Snap, Crackle, and Pop by making them Italian off screen, and then saying that means you invented breakfast. The story of the orphaned boy who is destined for greatness, taken under the wing of a wise old teacher with a big white beard is so cliched that not only is it the plot of the Disney film The Sword in the Stone, which is probably also based on something, it's also fucking Star Wars. That's just Star Wars, Joanne. And you may ask, well, did she come? No! You might say, okay, but she must have come up. No, she didn't. But no! The entire legendarium of the wizarding world of Harry Potter is closer to a Fat Boy Slim song than it is to an original piece of fiction. Harry Potter is cliches and stock characters all the way down. I guess you could say it's an exercise in sampling. Decades earlier, in the 50s, in an era where fantasy wasn't yet its own genre of fiction, J.R.R. Tolkien took the myths of Europe and used them to create an elaborate and detailed world of constructed languages, spanning dizzying geographies and rich, lived-in cultures. In the 60s, as high fantasy exploded, Ursula K. Guin saw an opportunity to address all the misogyny and racism that fueled it. She said, I'm going to do better than that by writing better than that. In the 80s, Terry Pratchett saw this proliferation of fantasy and thought it was a great opportunity to take the piss. Eventually, his taking of the piss would lead to some of the most profound and humane satire that would ever be written. In the 90s, Neil Gaiman took all of the fantasy and adventure in the mainstream and used it to introduce readers to the strangest corners of myth and dream, which somehow still felt familiar. And then along comes Joanne, and she's like, hey, I like the way you use trolls and shit. I'm just gonna shard out this little world where there's only one school in the entire continent of Africa. World building? Who's she?
I've never heard of that before.
Whoops, I guess I gotta kill that guy off now. Writing is so hard. Why is everyone so mean to me? I'm suing the internet. I'm suing God! Speaking on her blog in 2019, JKKK Rowling said,
Having your work scrutinized is an inevitable concomitant of being a professional writer. I never dreamed there would be a fandom the size of Harry Potter's picking over the books. It's staggering and wonderful. Given that I'm fairly obsessive myself, these are kindred spirits.
Kindred spirits? Kindred spirits? Well, that's fucking horrifying. Thanks, Joanne. Looks like you built a pretty good defense against the dark art of criticism by telling me and the other critics that we're basically the same as you. We're all obsessives. Well, no thanks. I obsess no longer. The Harry Potter series is definitely and definitively books and films. So we can unambiguously say that for sure. They also seem to be pretty clearly derivative and unoriginal books and films. And that's probably a large part of what makes them so successful. They scratch a cultural itch without exposing any of the weirdness of myth. They tell us familiar stories without asking any challenging questions, and the magic world reminds us of our own without the mental workout of shining a satirical light on real injustice. J.K. Rowling is a wedding DJ for fantasy fiction, playing all the hits, and there's nothing worse than a DJ. But none of them were really born from her, from the place inside us where art is conceived. And what's worse is that she doesn't seem to be too big a fan of the hits she's playing. Her disregard for accuracy in terms of Irish, Norse, and Greek mythology aside, J.K. Rowling doesn't even seem to understand how themes work, in general. It took until 2004 and a visit to the Holocaust Museum for Joanne to see that the genocidal wizards she spent more than a decade writing were, in fact, genocidal. Writing on her website in July of that year, Jo said that she was chilled to see that the Nazis used precisely the same warped logic as the Death Eaters. I don't know how she could not have known this, how she could not know, and then think the best thing to do is tell us that she did not know, and then use it as an opportunity to tell us about the dangers of fascist logic, while denying the very same atrocities she claims she finally bothered to learn about. Girlie, you just came up with ethno-fascism from first principles because you asked yourself, what would your posh friends do if they had magic powers? Put the microphone down and step away from the discourse. Your inability to understand things is a danger to you and everyone around you. Log the fuck off and read a book that you didn't write while cosplaying a poor person in your brother's cafe, while your friend paid your rent because you didn't feel like teaching anymore. When Neil Gaiman answered the question of whether or not J.K. Rowling stole his ideas, he said that he didn't think she had read the books of magic, and that it wouldn't matter if she had. Again, he said, I wasn't the first writer to create a young magician with potential, nor was Rowling the first to send one to school. And as you can see, this is kind of an understatement. Stories of magic schools have been around since real-life schools first shut their gates to the lower classes. Stories of orphans destined for greatness have been around for even longer than that. Stories of magic trains have been around for as long as trains, and even the iconic image of a tussle-haired boy in a school uniform and cloak with round glasses and an English accent is at least 7 years older than Harry Potter. Gaiman concluded by saying, it's not the ideas, It's what you do with them that matters. And I think this is exactly my biggest criticism of Rowling as a writer. What she does with these well-worn tropes and cliches is not much. She lists them, tells us about them instead of showing us. She crams them into a stuffy setting, adds them to her lazy playlist, and then buys herself time and a lengthy word count, all for the yearly mystery that is somehow both tedious and inconsistent. I read Harry Potter as a kid, and looking back, was left wanting. Maybe it's because I'd already read the greatest book series ever created, Animorphs, or maybe it's because the magic in her universe was devoid of charm. The one thing I know for sure is that the only talent Joanne without a doubt possesses is making content that appeals to the masses. If you want to call the work of J.K. Rowling good because she sold millions of books, go ahead and buy a new set of Harry Potter books and read them while eating what is obviously and arguably the most exquisite and creative cuisine in the world, McDonald's, where each location has served millions too. Listen up, bub. I don't love having sponsors in every video, but I need them if I want to live, thrive, eventually have a place to live where my workspace isn't in a windowless room. Eventually, I'd like my members over at patreon.com to be enough to not take sponsors on every video. So if you want to help with that and get Benny's exclusive videos, watch parties, and more, like a Discord, sign up and share this video, or I'll tell the Pope you're gay. Okay, so remember, I asked people on Twitter to share what name J.K. Rowling would have given them based on their identity if they were in her wonderful wizarding world, and they did not disappoint. They did not disappoint. And I'm going to read you my favorites. I fucking love these. Autistic, Borda Hopper, Ebon Chained, Jew Wish, Jenny Jigglepiggle, Manny Nadress, Tyranius POC, Evorcible Damage, Gale Lawsuit, Defi Wheeler, Hormone Changer, Mickey Mafioso, Anne Frank, Wokirius Sertuvignal, Taco Border Jumper, Shio Was Man, Sean McLaughlin, Carson Bomber, Peter File, Rob Everyone, Cho Chang, Tora Kosher, Trinae Manhands, Jock McGay, Boob Sweat Poutine, Grumeria Genitalium, Denise Skellington, Uriman, by the way, Svetlana Horvich, Timothy Fagot, Mool Lotto, Autist Blackmon Pillowbite, Notorium Big Nose, Autumn Gynophilia, Janice Fickle, Offred Pudgelike, Spuds McGroomer, Shloma Accountantberg, Dandy Hogbody, Dreidel McCarbomb, Nachos Rodriguez, Hugh Jacksman, Haggis McWhiskey, Adolf Hirschfeld, Carla Baum, Sanchez Hernandez, Juanita Moelon, Patio Potato, Penis Handler, Stimmy Bomb Threat, Rhea Tardid, Ostrachan Half-Jew, Hermanfrodite, Haggis McBackpipes. Okay, I love you, bye.